Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for joining, everyone. For those of you that are on the East Coast, I know it's late, so thanks for joining. And then everyone here who's joining during the dinner bedtime rush, thank you for taking time and supporting us. And I want to make sure we had a ton of value. So we're going to jump right in. If I can actually move the slides. There we go. Okay, so for those of you I haven't met yet, I'm Alex Lopez. I am the owner of the Parent Essentials. Such a weird thing to think about, but I'm a full-time working mom. doTERRA is a side business of mine that I started about a year ago. Ellie is my daughter. She's in the middle. She's 6 years old, and Charlie is almost 4. She's the bottom right there. Charlie is actually the reason why I started doTERRA and why I started using the oils. Charlie, around the age of 2, developed a really terrible sort of year-long battle with croup. Every few weeks we were in a doctor's office or a hospital, and she was getting all sorts of drugs, and every doctor would say to me, she'll just grow out of it. Her lungs are small and her airways are all small, so if she grows, it'll go away. And as a mom, you just have this feeling where that just can't be right. It can't be normal to pump this many drugs into a little 2-year-old's body. And that's when I met Isa, and she was like, why don't you try these oils? And from there, basically, it sort of cascaded into this whole lifestyle change, into more holistic health in our home. And then one day I was like, let me just try this doTERRA thing, and actually doing it as a business. So here I am. The person who's not here is my husband, Julio, which is kind of rude not to actually include him as a picture, but he is an amazing support system and great dad, but also is the reason why I'm able to be a mom and also work full-time during the day and then have this side passion of mine. Okay, so one of the things that has been really, really great from my previous classes is not actually me talking and me delivering content. It's actually the sharing from the other women and the moms on the call. So a couple of the areas that I'm super passionate about is our kids' health and of course how we're doing as a family, but then also for women of a certain age like us, it's our hormone health and what happens to our hormones once we start to reach perimenopause and all the crazy cascading effects that happen at that age. And in my hormone class, it was amazing to hear women talk about everything from, their menopausal symptoms to what they're struggling with post-cancer, to the sleepless nights, to embarrassing pee and other habits. And so what I would love to do is spend some time here as a group, understanding, how are your children doing? What are the things that you find right now emotionally that they're struggling with? And sort of how are you noticing and knowing that they are struggling? So as an example for me, I had a wake up call at some point during quarantine. It all sort of blends together now, where Charlie, she's always been kind of like a mouthy kid and putting things in her mouth. But all of a sudden I was noticing over a series of a few days that it was constant, either her fingers, which she had never, ever put in her mouth before, to every single item she was just putting in her mouth and chewing on. And I was like, well, you're not teething because you're past that stage, and you're not losing teeth because you're not there. And I couldn't quite figure it out. And then I had this aha moment. I was like, that is how she's getting her energy out. That is how she's sort of dealing with her emotions. It's through this very chewy kind of, tactile thing. And then of course there's been other ups and downs of crashes and highs and lows throughout. But I'm wondering if you guys can share, what are some of the ways that you are sort of realizing that, yeah, you know what, our kids are having a really hard time, and what is that looking like in your homes? Either by chatting it or coming off mute.
I'll start.
Thank you, Ashley.
We've had, yeah, thanks for the stellar pitch, jeez. I have 3 kiddos, and we've had some sidewaysness happening. One of them has struggled to sleep through the night. She's looking right through the window right now. I don't know where your goggles are. And they're in the hot tub. And the other one had an anxiety attack, which was not normal. So that's kind of been some sideways emotional stuff that we've seen symptom wise going on in our house that's not normal and new since Corona.
You know, it's interesting. This is Ashley is actually the one who inspired this class, because I was thinking about and planning on doing a hormone health class that's tied to emotions for moms and women. And I still want to do that. But when I heard that story, I was like, oh yeah, our kids, they're the ones who are really struggling right now. And what are the ways that we can help them? So thank you for inspiring the class. Anybody else feel brave enough to type it in or share? I know this is also a very private topic. Oh, I think Caitlin might be trying to come off mute.
Sorry. So my babe's only 6 months old, so we're not kind of in that stage yet, but just kind of wanting to educate myself when we do get there. But right now we're kind of around that teething stage as well. So we're dealing with that, but.
Yeah. You look really good for having a 6-month-old.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I was not that put together at 6 with a 6-month-old. Okay, anybody else want to share?
Mine is not exactly a little one. Mine's almost 16, about to turn 16, but it's on another level, right? Like, he's totally missing school. He's an only child. So that whole social aspect has been a real struggle for him, and missing his friends, just the interaction with the other kids. And he's very involved at school as well. I'm seeing it in, he's a very good kid, but he's, I could see it coming out in his like more his anger and attitude, which is so unlike him. That's just totally not who my kid is. So yeah, definitely. And he hides it very well, but I'm seeing it in his angry sort of comments. And Ola, you'll know, that's not Jack.
No, you know, and actually adolescents are interesting. I don't know, Ashley, if you told me the other day, somebody told me that those adolescent years, or those early teen years, are when kids go through that other phase of like detachment from their family and their parents, and when they get a lot of independence and start to pull away, and they can't pull away right now. And that's why so much of them are demonstrating this anger and frustration and, you know, outbursts at their parents that aren't typical, because like biologically they're supposed to be going further from the nest, and they're trapped, and that's incredibly frustrating for them. Okay, if there aren't any others, I'm going to move to the next slide. Okay, so before I jump into oils and all the good things, I wanted to talk about a little bit about chemistry of how our bodies work and how stress works, because I thought I knew quite a bit about this preparing for the hormone class, but I recently did a mental health training, and I had this other aha moment that I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. That's why when people say to treat mental health, they tell you to do all these things. So a few things pieced together for me. So first, to start, this whole slide is based on the fight or flight response that we have in our bodies. And our fight or flight response, if you're familiar with that, it's a response to stress that was developed when, like way back in evolution, when we were really running away from tigers. And if you think about, those are super intense periods of time where you know, a tiger is attacking, and you know, you immediately freeze and you think about how to, you know, fight or flight. And what happens in your body at that time is that you get this immediate release of cortisol, and also epinephrine, norepinephrine, or adrenaline, and a lot of other systems in your body shut down. So your ability, like fertility, you know, like nobody's making babies when they're getting attacked by a tiger, right? So fertility doesn't matter. Your immune system starts to shut down. Your digestion starts to shut down, because again, nothing matters more than your ability to prepare for battle right now. And so that, you know, when I say thoughts and emotions are stored in your body as chemicals, it's because when you have that stress response, there's this incredible crushing cascade of chemicals in your body. Someone else said this, I saw this on, it was actually the father of modern medicine said it, but I saw it on Instagram the other day, where I get all my information, obviously. But he basically said, organs weep the tears your eyes refuse to shed. And I was like, that's so true. You know, when you have like all this pent up emotion and you haven't let it out, like all that can come out in physical pain, autoimmune disorders, in psoriasis, like skin issues. And you know, sometimes when you cry and you just have this like amazing release and you're just like, I feel so good. It's literally because you're shifting the energy out of your body and taking all that out of you. And so I kind of understood this cycle before where, you know, you have this chemical cascade, the stressor goes away, and then you sort of return to normal. The challenge in general, even pre-COVID, but even more so now with COVID, because there's so many extra stresses, is that we're constantly in that fight or flight mode, because we're either overwhelmed by homework or overwhelmed by trying to, you know, make all the meals. How many meals can we possibly make in a day right now? All the extra clothes there are to clean and all the extra things, and trying to balance it all, plus the fear of everything we're hearing in the news. And oh my gosh, are we safe? Are our parents safe? Are our children safe? And so there's constantly this cycle of hormones in our body. But here's the thing that I learned recently that like really stopped me in my tracks, especially for the type of anxiety that I've struggled with, which is catastrophic anxiety. So catastrophic anxiety is a type of anxiety. You may be familiar with it. You may struggle with it too. Many moms do, where I take everything to the next level of worry. So I might be like in a situation with my girlfriends where our kids are playing in the playground, and the kids are like up on monkey bars or whatever, and they're just playing and having a good old time. And they'll be like completely oblivious, like things are good. And all I will see is like blood, death, like broken bones, like my mind immediately goes to the worst case scenario. And through some of the things that I've been doing, I've really had that under control. But I've also noticed that as my stress level has my baseline stress level has increased during COVID, I again can find myself slipping into those thoughts. Like, how many of you have noticed that if you had previously struggled with anxiety, that has gotten worse during COVID? Raise a hand. Yeah, for sure. Like, and that's really because that baseline level of stress and anxiety is already higher. So here's how this sort of system works and where I had the big aha. So you have this thought, and it triggers this fight or flight response, and it releases the chemical cascade into your body. But that chemical cascade is like a drug for your body. Your body gets used to it and starts to crave it like a drug. And you know what's crazy about our body? Then our brain starts to insert thoughts and grab thoughts out of nowhere to feed that chemical cascade again. And I didn't know that. It's totally messed up. But that started to make sense for me, because I was like, oh my gosh, that's my big aha, because my brain was like, I want that chemical cascade again. So let me pick stuff that is completely outrageous in completely safe and normal situations and try to feed that awful cycle. And I do remember, like, there's so many days where I'd be in a shower in my room and my kids would be like out somewhere with my husband, and, you know, they wouldn't even be anywhere within like a, 10-mile radius, but I would be hearing crying, and I would start to see blood, and I would start to, like, those ghost sounds that you kind of insert. And I was like, that's what's happening. Those things aren't really happening. But of course, my brain is taking it to the worst case scenario because it's in this awful loop. But we can really break out of that cycle. And so the whole goal of the next future slides is to think about, for ourselves and for our children, what are the things that we can do and implement so that we're not in this constant cycle where our baseline stress level isn't here, but maybe we can bring it down to here, and then maybe even further down. Did anybody else have a kind of an aha with that, or kind of like, ugh, how awful is that? Just raise a hand. Like, yeah. Okay, perfect. So you might recognize this. A few of my friends might recognize this who've done some of Ashley and Allison's happy hours, but I'll talk about this graphic on the right. But this is an awesome thing that came out of one of their classes, happy hours that they ran. But I'm going to chat through some lifestyle changes right now that we can work through. There are 10 things on the list. What I want to make sure I get across here is that you don't have to do all 10. Maybe try one. Do what works for your family. And the biggest thing is, I don't have this down. Like, perfection is the enemy of progress. I believe wholeheartedly in balance and being realistic, because if we try to either portray that we have a perfect life, that's super, super dangerous for everybody. And I mean, if I could show you like the disaster, you can't see right directly above me, all the disasters like on this side of the room right now, like none of us have this perfect. And so I want to make sure that, you know, as I'm talking through these ideas, know that like I'm learning, I'm implementing these along with you all. And, you know, just try what works for you guys. So the first tip I've got is, you know, encourage your children to express their feelings. Like I grew up in like I'm a perfectionist and I'm a helper. And I think a lot of that was that my parents were amazing, but I think I was raised to like really want to be a pleaser, you know, and girls typically are, you want to serve, you want to show up and be happy and smiley and not complain. And then boys on the opposite side is, you know, you don't want to express your feelings. You don't want to show your emotions. You want to, you know, you have to be strong. And then, you know, but there's so much power in just having your children express their feelings and validating their feelings and then really helping to problem solve. Like I recently had a conversation with Ellie, my 6-year-old, and I was like, okay, so this is the thing you're worried about. And actually the amazing thing is I think I learned from a lot of moms, but she started crying out of nowhere going to bed about leaving a Polly Pocket at school. And normally I'd be like, okay, big deal. You left a Polly Pocket at school. You're going back to school tomorrow. You're going to find the Polly Pocket tomorrow. Like nothing's going to happen. But then I was like, okay, this is not obviously about the Polly Pocket. Like what is going on here that you're totally losing it? And I was like, okay, Ellie, let's sort of break this down. What are you really worried about? What do you think is going to happen to the Polly Pocket? You know, how are we going to problem solve this? But yeah, I mean, it's amazing how, especially now with this baseline being higher, you know, how something comes out in terms of, you know, what they think is being a problem might not even be that. And they just need some help sort of processing what it is that they're really afraid of. Okay, foundational health. This is super, super important. And you could literally do 18 years of training on sleep, exercise, and nutrition and supplementation. But I love essential oils. And quite honestly, I think they're incredible things. But before essential oils, and essential oils do a lot of great things, quite honestly. But if the foundational health is not there, it's almost like we're sort of slapping a Band-Aid. And I do believe that oils can heal from the inside out. But if we don't have proper sleep hygiene or sleep habits, exercise habits, and nutrition, especially in kids, you know, everything else is just not enough to really compensate. So sleep, of course, is incredibly important. You know, there's so much chaos that happens and so much noise in a child's day that sleep is the opportunity for them to really sort of like process those thoughts and feelings and learnings that they've had from that day and put them in the parts of their brain and organize them in the parts of their brain where they need to be stored. And so it's really restful and kind of helps, again, lower that level of chaos and noise overnight. Exercise, of course, everyone knows the importance of exercise for general health, but it also releases dopamine and serotonin, which are amazing, amazing hormones for mood boosting. Like how many of you can like not work out for 3 months and feel crappy and you're like, I should really work out. And then you like, I don't know, run for 15 minutes and all of a sudden you're like, man, I look good. I feel good, you know, and it just doesn't take much. And it's not that like overnight your body changed or overnight your problems went away, but it really is that response to like good feeling hormones. And that's so true for our kids too. And then of course, nutrition, you all know all this, or you've heard probably a lot of the things around real food and the importance of greens and vegetables. But the thing I'll say here is that you may have heard of the gut-brain connection. There's an incredible connection between the gut and the brain, and the gut controls our emotions. And I think the statistics around the immune system is that the gut controls 80% of our immune system. And so having healthy gut, like minimizing the bad bacteria and increasing the good bacteria is super, super important. And this is where I'll mention sugar. Like all of us eat sugar. Again, I don't believe in perfection here because I feel like if I restrict sugar too much in my family, then everyone just goes off the deep end. And so what we prefer to do is just talk about the balance. Like, hey, we're going to have a treat today. You know, let's load up on some extra greens or some extra carrots or whatever we're having to just protect our belly, you know, because we want to enjoy that sugar, but we really want to protect our belly. And this is an area of all the areas where that I actually do feel proud of the progress, because we've kind of been pretty consistent this year around food. If anybody is interested, in January I did a challenge where it was more just like a resource around nutrition that I shared out with my community. But one of the things that I talk about in there is the implementation of in our fridge a drawer that is dedicated to healthy snacks that kids can pull out and grab whenever they want. I'm happy to share that, but it's been a game changer because the kids have access. I'm like, you guys can access anything you want in there. There's healthy cheese. They're kind of limited there. They're not going to eat like 18 pounds of cheese, but if they do, it's better than them eating like 18 pounds of chips. Some carrots, some fruit. The rule is that if they want to, you know, eat too much fruit, then they got to balance it with a little bit of protein. So they kind of just sort of figure that out. So I'm happy to share that after the class. Okay, so how many of you feel like there's just like a lot of noise right now all over the place? Like, one, you all have kids all the time. Yeah, there's lots of kids in the home. There's TVs on, there's devices going, there's news going. And that noise like really does create this internal chaos that helps sort of kind of increase that level of baseline stress. So the big thing here is we tend to talk with our friends and talk with our spouses and talk with grandmas and grandpas, or we might have the news on, but being mindful about the words that we use around our kids. You know, kids listen and pick up everything. And it's amazing how they sort of start to fear and build up things and make up things out of something that might be completely benign. So, you know, it's really around reducing like the stuff that goes in through like whatever we're talking about and playing on television. And this is where I want to mention that resource that Ashley and Allison had in their community. But this is from a woman, her Instagram handle is Quiet Book Queen, but it's this upside down pyramid that talks about the best type of programming for kids if they are going to be on their devices. Because let's be real, we all need our kids using some devices to have a break, to get some work done, to do whatever. And I really, really love this. One thing that we've been trying to do a lot more that isn't represented here is I learned, maybe also Ashley from you, but that if kids are hunched over an iPad like this, it really mimics people who are sort of sad. You know, when you think of somebody sad and depressed, like they're hunched over, their shoulders are hunched over, they might have their head down. And so when an iPad is in someone's lap, they're in that similar position, right? And they're kind of hunched in towards themselves, and it's just they're not getting as much air into their lungs. They're just sort of like this. If you are doing any of these things, there's even a small difference. Like you can still watch TV shows and do all these things, but there's a subtle difference that happens when it happens to be on a television that is like 15 feet away up in front. The kids are sitting up more, their heads are up, their lungs are clear, they're able to take a more full deep breath, their shoulders are back. And yeah, they might be laying on the couch, right? But that subtle difference makes a difference in the sort of the chemical cascade in front of them, because inside of them, because they are able to take that full deep breath. They are sitting up. It is a more positive posture. I'm going to take a break there because I've been chatting a long time. Everyone still following? Everyone okay? Good? Okay. Okay. I know I have some dancing friends on this call. How many of you listen to music and dance in the house? Yeah. Totally, it's great. That's sort of the counter opposite. I didn't even think about it this way, but when you reduce the noise, like putting that positive noise and you know, moving around, like really introduces like a positive vibe into your home. So I know a lot of people already doing that. Slow, deep breaths, yoga, and meditation. I'm not great at allocating time to meditation, but I'm also more aware today than ever when I'm starting to get like that edge. Like, do you guys know when you're like starting to get like you're like the buzzings? Okay, I'm feeling the pressure building in my chest. I'm getting stressed out. Your breathing's picking up and everything. Well, in the fight or flight response, your breathing does pick up because you're preparing for battle, right? And so the deep breathing actually tricks your body into thinking that you're not in the fight or flight, because you are intentionally overriding that like fast breathing intentionally and slowing your body down. So your body starts to think like, oh, the danger is gone. Okay, I can calm myself down. So you're really overriding that response. I actually am going back to the nutrition thing and fight or flight. I laugh about this one because in like the times of stress is like the worst time we ever want to eat healthy, because we're all grabbing the Cheez-Its, we're all grabbing the stuff. And there's an actual scientific reason behind that. The reason is because in fight or flight, when you're preparing for battle, you need carbs. And your body is not gonna, you know, fight a lion or a tiger on kale. Let's be honest. And so that's why you really do crave all that junk food and the carbs. It's because like your body literally thinks it's going to go into like the gladiator's arena. And so I just want to empathize, like I 100%, like when I'm working at 10 o'clock at night, the last thing I'm like thinking to myself is like, let me whip up a kale salad. You know, I'm like, let me find that olive bread from Whole Foods and the salty butter and, you know, go there. Slice of cheese, even better. Outdoor experiences. How many of you have had the opportunity during COVID to explore a beach, a trail, you know, go out somewhere? Yeah. That's been, to be honest, it's been our lifesaver. Our kids struggle at home. We struggle at home. They're on top of each other fighting. We're all arguing. We're all, you know, super stressed out. And for like magic happens when you're outside. It's the opportunity to exercise, get fresh air, get vitamin D, which is super, super critical to emotional health and our overall physical health. And it's almost like that space from each other gives them an opportunity to play and roam and explore, and they're just not on top of each other. It's just such a, you know, those have been the best days we've had, where everyone is just so much more at peace. And one other important thing that can happen, especially in a time where we're even trapped inside, but in general, is these days, children are very focused on themselves. They are absorbing all these things, especially older kids who happen to be on Instagram or something, and they look at a picture and they're like, that girl's life looks so awesome. You know, her shoes are so cool. She's so beautiful. I'm not beautiful. I don't look like that. And hey, why is Brittany hanging out with Sarah? I thought we were best friends. I heard there's like some weird Snapchat feature now that makes people jealous of like people hanging out with other people. I don't know what that is, but there's something. I know, Allison, I think you might have been the one who told me this, but they literally like surface information. They're called like connections or something that basically make you jealous when like someone else has more connections with another person. It's wrong. It's wrong. But it turns these kids inside of themselves, and they start to feel like, oh, I'm not great. I'm not, you know, I'm not measuring up. I don't have the friends. And outdoor experiences, when you're out in nature, one of the reasons in research it's shown that it's really effective against like these emotional issues is that it gives children and people a sense that there's something out there greater than themselves. And those of you who volunteer and take your children to opportunities to give back, or those of you who connect with family and everything, like those are so critical in helping children understand that like there's so much more to this world. And when they have that opportunity, then it sort of reduces the sort of impact of the emotions that they feel about themselves, because they start to realize like, oh yeah, there's so much out there in this world. You know, I don't have to just be so focused on my pains and my problems all the time. Art therapy, and if there are adults here who love to color, the adult coloring books, that is such a craze right now, and I've just been learning about why. But a lot of it is around, one, it's the calming nature of coloring, but for kids, a lot of it is around expressing their emotions through a physical medium. And we have some friends, Linny's not on this call, but she's really taken up, and actually Nicole as well, has really taken up the rock thing. So you may have heard like kids and families go out, they look for the smooth rocks in their neighborhoods, they bring it home, they color the rock, and then they go out and put it back into the world for another friend to find it. And I actually realized like how many elements that integrates. It's the exercise and the walking outdoors with your family and getting that fresh air. You're exploring, because while you're looking for rocks, the kids are like, oh, look, like how cool, like look at that giant slug and look at that. And then there's a bird's nest, and think about all the things you pick up. And then when you come back, of course, you've got the art therapy, but then you're giving back again, and you're like, hey, now let's go give this to another child and leave it somewhere so another kid can find it. You know, it's such a beautiful ritual that I like never even thought about beyond the like, oh yeah, rock collecting, that I sort of just thought it was. I really minimized how cool that was. Deep pressure. So If any of you have ever been at a massage, do you guys know how like at the beginning of a massage therapist like pushes down on you really hard? And how that like really sets the tone and kind of gets you into that mode of like relaxation? That deep pressure actually triggers a chemical response in your body that just like tells you to relax. And so hugs, one of the reasons hugs are so awesome for kids is that it actually just not just makes them happy and hugs and love and whatever, but it actually calms them quite a bit. And I think Ashley, you might have said that that was the first thing you did was like hug super tightly, go outside, deep breaths, like how can I help you? What's going on? I'm here for you. That reassurance. Massage. Some of you are fans of weighted blankets and heating pads. I love putting a few drops of oil on a heating pad. The thing that my kids absolutely love, and I don't even know how we ended up starting it and when it started, but going to bed, they like that massage pressure thing. I think I started it when like my girls, both of them have a hard time sort of settling in at night. They get one gets heady and one's still in this like, I'm going to do yoga at 9 o'clock at night for some reason on the days she naps. So they love when I do that sort of super heavy pressure on their body, going all the way from the head, down the arms, giving them a good squeeze. And it just seems to sort of like set the tone and help relax them. Okay, 2 more things. Okay, model. Kids are really picking up how we treat ourselves. And if we want them to take care of themselves and care for their bodies and their emotions, we have to model that behavior. I have a few things here, but I think, you know, kids not only pick up when we're hurt and we're not feeling great, and so that makes them feel sad for us, but then they also start to pick up and learn the habits and the way we talk to ourselves and the way we do or don't care for ourselves. And then they sort of understand, like, you know, and I think about this with my own mom. Like, my own mom busted her tail all the time. And if any of you have read Untamed, which I think some of you have, I know some of you had, she talks a lot about this martyr complex where we're like, oh, I have to do all the things. And it's like, oh yeah, but I make that decision. And why am I being a martyr? Nobody's putting that on me. I'm the one who's taking that on, and I'm the one who's not prioritizing myself and time for myself. And so I do really believe that if we sort of demonstrate that we're caring for ourselves, it starts to cascade across our whole family. And then the last one is a funny word. Hormesis is the concept of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And going like pretty deep here, a lot of many studies are coming out right now that's saying that one of the reasons that suicide is growing so quickly in our teenagers and our college kids, or those who have just left college and are entering the workforce, is because they've never really encountered resistance in their life. And so over the years, their parents have shielded and protected them and prevented them from failing by either calling teachers and fighting for their grades. Or I've had a couple of people in my circle at work whose parents have called after the, like, you know, new graduate has received a poor annual review score at work. And I think to myself, like, is this actually happening? Like, an adult leaving college enters the workforce and the mom calls the boss when the child has not received a more than stellar review at the end of the year. Like, it just blows my mind. But when we do that, we fail to equip our kids with the ability to be resilient and respond and bounce back from the small things during their life to when big things happen, like when life gets real serious, when they're older and they're out there on their own, they're not equipped to handle that. So it is okay. I know I don't think there's a ton of like over-parenters here, but it's okay when your kids mess up. The bad grades, good learning opportunity, growth mindset, you know, teaching your kids that like it's how you bounce back, it's versus protecting them from every single failure. And I struggle, like I can be very, I would never call a teacher on a grade because it's not how I was raised, but like I have a natural tendency to care and protect. And how heartbreaking is it to see when your kids are hurting? But I think it is something critical if down the line the stakes are a lot higher.
Alex, I'm going to just read you something really awesome that Ashley wrote in the chat. It was back when you were talking about, I guess the hugging. She said, I heard from a therapist the other day that our bodies don't even actually know the difference between our arms in a hug or someone else's. So teaching our kids even to hug themselves can help relax us. awesome.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad someone else had heard that. Yeah, just before I move off, I did learn something in the mental health class that Allison and Ashley hosted from the trainer there, but she talks about, again, we're not trying to be perfect and the greatest mom 100% of the time. I think we're striving for good. I think it's 40% of the time. Is that right? I get this. Nailed it. Only took me about 20 times. But in the rest of the time, the rest of the 60% is about repairing and coming back and helping children understand. So I fly off the handle at my kids all the time, especially when I have a higher like baseline level of stress. And what that taught me was like, that is okay. And actually good for them to understand that that is something that happens. But it's how you respond and come back and say, look, I didn't show up as the mom I wanted to show up there, or that's not the type of mom I want to be. I don't want to yell at you. It's not about you. This is about what's happening right now, or I'm struggling with something. And not only that they understand like, oh, this isn't about me. Okay, my mom is having a hard time, but it helps them understand like how to work through those emotions and how to communicate with their potentially future partner or with their parents or with their siblings, knowing that like, we're not all perfect and we have to be always happy and everything, but that there's a way to communicate through that afterwards.
You totally just like read my mind. I love that, modeling for them that emotions and mental health, it's a real thing. It's something we deal with, and showing them like how to put words to their emotions and how to deal with that. I love it.
That's right. Okay, so we have about 20 minutes, so I'm going to keep moving pretty quickly and actually get into the essential oil portion of the conversation. But okay, so why do we use essential oils with our families? This is a picture of Ellie. It's just a perfect example of how you build and layer healthy habits in your home. This happens to be a Caesar salad recipe that has a couple of drops of lemon in it, but has nothing to do with that, right? It's all about the ways that we can teach our kids over time, how to instrument good habits. So one, when I brought essential oils home into our home, I remember my husband and I were like smelling them, like, they smell good, but whatever, all that woo-woo, oil stuff, like as if they're gonna work. And the kids were the polar opposite. Like the kids were like opening up the bottles and smelling them. They're like, I love this one, not this one as much. They're asking questions. They're super curious. They had zero preconceived sort of notions about it. They're just like, they just loved it, right? It was just natural for them. I did mention it sort of builds a habit of self-care and health and really reaching for natural solutions. Like my kids don't really know much about Advil. Like it's there. We haven't used it in a long time, knock on wood, because we haven't had anything so severe that like an oil has not, like oils just seem to meet a lot of our needs right now. We've been really lucky we haven't had to use steroids in a long time with Charlie. So they just know like something happened, they reach for an oil. It helps build immunity, which is incredibly important, of course. And we talked about, supporting their emotions, and we'll talk about the oils that help with that in a bit. It helps us respond in difficult times. So this is a story that happened the other day, literally actually 2 days ago. Like I said, they all blur together, but Ellie was running outside to meet some friends to go play in the street. And she was coming off really fast off the step of our stairs coming outside. And she slipped on some moss and basically ate in front of her friends. And she totally scratched up her knee. She comes inside sobbing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? I'm like checking her out. And I realized like, she's got a scraped knee, but like, this is not like super serious. But if you saw her, she was like falling apart. And I was like, what is going on here? And quickly I realized that like, one, it freaked her out the minute she slipped and fell. I think she saw the reaction of her friends' faces and who were like, oh my gosh, she fell. And so that sort of increased her sort of response and fear that like something really serious happened. And then I think she was also super embarrassed. And so she was crying so hard, she like couldn't even catch her breath. And I was like, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And then I was like, okay, I know what to do. And I just ran up and grabbed the steady roller. And I brought it in front of her. I rolled it on behind her ears and on her wrist. And I just put it in front of her nose. And I was like, Ellie, start breathing super deep. Take some deep, deep breaths. Cause you could tell like, and they're like, and I was like, it's okay to be embarrassed. Your friends have done it before. It's all right. I'm reassuring her, telling her to take deep breaths. And she connected. She understands that she reaches for steady when she needs to like calm down. If she immediately remembers the smell, it sets her into that mode where she's like, okay, I can start to sort of like take some deeper breaths and really calm down. It's just the most incredible response and how quickly it happens because we use it so often and proactively in our families. And then the last one is around first aid. Like we have a first aid kit for all the most common stuff: skin irritations, fever, growing pains. There's some, tummy aches is another big one that happens. It's headaches mostly for adults. The kids don't seem to have a lot of headaches, but headaches as well. Anything I'm missing here around like the way you guys use oils in your families and why you guys use them? I feel like I've been chatting a lot, so I want to make sure I'm not just like, Okay. Okay, so in case there are a few people who are new to oils here, I think most of the folks who are on the call are regular users, but I'll just make sure I note it for a recording, especially since this is important for kids. Oils are used 3 different ways. You can diffuse it in a diffuser, or you can just like smell it right off the roller, or out of a bottle. You can apply it topically, and this is important with children because I highly, highly recommend with kids you dilute it with a carrier oil like fractionated coconut oil. So either have it already in a roller form, like this one for the kids roller, or if you are doing something on the fly, then just putting like a couple teaspoons in your palm, dropping a couple drops, and then rubbing it on. And then internally, which I don't recommend for new people and don't often recommend for kids, or don't really recommend for kids. The only time our kids use oils internally is that they have the big water bottles for school, and then I'll drop like 1 drop of wild orange, which they love, or lemon into their water bottle. But especially for folks who are new to oils, I don't really recommend that. And then this is for more for the notes later that I'll send out, but a couple of helpful resources here. One is the dilution guide. So this is for a 10 millimeter roller bottle. You might be able to see that at the top, or 2 teaspoons of carrier oil. This is the number of drops you want to put in maximum for different ages. So typically for an adult roller, I have 30 drops in my rollers if I'm making a roller. For kids, I actually usually do about 15 to 20 if it's just like an everyday roller. Again, oils a little goes a long way. But if I'm doing a fever roller for kids, because fever rollers are something that you want to use for, you know, a short period of time addressing a specific problem, I actually will go up to 30 drops because I know that I'm using it for a couple of days to get over a fever. But everything else, it's like a daily use thing. It's 15 to 20 drops for kids. And then you may know there are some oils which are photosensitive. So on every oil bottle, you'll see a little label that says that an oil is photosensitive. These are the oils all listed here. What you want to make sure if you're using one of those oils, you want to wait 12 hours before that skin is exposed to sun. But like many of us are like On Guard users, and we use that every single day with our kids. And so what I do with those in the summer is, instead of rolling them like I tend to do on like the back of the neck, I roll it on the back of the spine, lower spine, or bottoms of the feet. So those are areas that are covered with a shirt, and so that, you know, they won't get sunburn. So I'm definitely more careful with those in the summer. Okay. I won't go through this in detail, but I just want to talk about, like, you know, if you are trying to grow the habit of having essential oils in your home, like one of the things you can do is, we have them, I mentioned having them everywhere, and I don't know if you can see that, but you know, we just have them on hand everywhere in every room. So you can buy these things, like, quite honestly, online or at the dollar store or at your local Home Goods, but we keep them, you know, basically on my desk at the office. In the kids' rooms, I've got their rollers and their their blends for their diffusers. And they're just basically there. We start our mornings, each girl every day gets to pick like the potion that they want to put into the diffuser for the day. You know, when we're doing crafts, like we have a subscription box from Allison's business called Allison Carter Celebrates. So we get a box of crafts every month and things that help us sort of build memories for our families and celebrate. And we integrate oils into that. So she actually had one where there was a bath bomb that you made with essential oils, but also, anytime we get something, we're like, oh, can we integrate oils into this? So in the class follow-up, I'll actually send you guys the slides, but also a long list of like recipes or other DIY stuff in case you're like, oh, I want to make Play-Doh. You know, I'm going to make Play-Doh, but I can actually add some essential oils to that or some other fun crafts. one other thing, this one's a popular one, if any of your kids are scared or at that age where they're really afraid going to bed, Monster Spray or Sleepy Time Spray are super popular. Kids, you know, my near 4-year-old is going through this like afraid of shadows thing. So she like sprays around the walls, like to make sure that the shadows don't get her. So that's a super popular one. And also, I mean, how cute are those diffuser bracelets? If you haven't seen a diffuser bracelet before, it's like a little bracelet you can put on. They have necklaces too. And they're super cute, but you just rub a little bit of oil on them. And so it slowly diffuses into their skin throughout the day. I mean, they're adorable, so kids love to wear them, but sneaky, they have essential oils on them. So, and it's that slow diffusion throughout the day on it. Okay, I'm gonna zip through the rest pretty quickly because I wanna make sure we have some time for questions too, but one of the things that is like my absolute favorite is just over a year ago, maybe a year and a bit, doTERRA released the kids collection line, which is a set of rollers that's pre-diluted for kids, so it's extra diluted. And I mean, they're super adorable. They have, I actually didn't know this until I was preparing for this class, thanks to Isa, but they have a little body on them at the top, or a heart or a brain. And that helps you understand, like, is it heart for emotions? Is it a human little body at the top for like a physical thing, either pain or something like stronger, like immunity, or is it cognitive? So is it brain related, like thinker and calmer? And then some of you, this is a helpful chart. The adult version of the roller, which you may be more familiar with, is on the right. And the thing I love about these, actually, the kids rollers, is that more and more I find myself gravitating to the kids versions of the roller. Like Intune has patchouli in it, and it's not a smell that I particularly enjoy, so I actually prefer Thinker. And so I use Thinker instead of Intune. I find Digestin, if you aren't a huge fan of black licorice, that smell, anise, then you might like Tamer better, which is spearmint based, and I love Tamer because it just smells like gum to me, like a really nice gum. So I prefer Tamer. Pro tip for moms who do have Tamers: you want to plump up your lips, roll a little bit of Tamer on your lips, and it like, yeah, instant like plumping, really, really pretty. The other thing I do with Tamer is that sometimes I find I get a little bit congested, like either behind my ear or on my sinuses. And I'll rub Tamer along the line of my cheekbone and behind my ear to sort of just kind of clear out those passageways. You can also rub it on the tip of your nose if you're congested too. And then I won't go through each of these, but I don't want to go through and like talk in detail about each oils, but I think what's valuable often from my friends is that they say, well, how do you integrate these into your home? What do you do? And so I'll kind of share a few quick tips. I did mention that with the Calmer, I do that, I put it on at night. So I use this mostly going to bed because if there's something going on during the day where I feel like the girls need to just chill a bit, I reach for Steady versus Calmer I use more at night. And so this is like literally on their nightstand. And then Thinker, when we do send kids back to school, you can send Thinker in their backpack. Ellie just has it in her desk at school, so she can apply it when she wants it. I will share with you guys a quick tip. If you guys do want to use these things, though, these are just makeup containers. Let me see if I can show. Yeah, so these are just makeup containers. The ones that fit the rollers are lipstick holders. And the ones that fit like a 15 millimeter bottle like this are nail polish holders. And so they're like the perfect size. So if you're ever looking for them, and again, these are at the dollar store, you can have the lipstick ones at the dollar store too. You want to, it's the lipsticks for the rollers, and it's the nail polish holders for the big 15 ml bottles. Okay. Brave. Oh my gosh, I love Brave. I have one child who is like, I was going to say something rude and swear. She's crazy. She is like my spicy Latina. She will like, she's the youngest, and she will like run with no fear. And then Ellie, though she's super active, she's more reserved. Like she will observe, she's kind of a little bit more worried. I'm actually worried that she's sort of picking up more of my like hesitation and starting to pick up, like if anybody feels like their kids are picking up some of their anxiety. Hi Reese, hi Nicole. Hi. If you notice like your kids are picking up, I am worried that Ellie's like picking up a little bit of my hesitation. Like I'll hear her say, "Be careful, Charlie. Don't hurt yourself. You don't want to fall." And so, I have to be careful about that, what I say out loud, because I also don't want to sort of frame her anxiety moving forward because of me. But Brave is awesome for her because whenever she sort of senses that hesitation, I'm like, "Hey, roll this on. You got this, girl," And whether it's the oil that works or more the mental state she's in, she's like, "You're right. I do got this," And then I mentioned Steady. That's like that super grounding blend. For any of you who are a fan of Balance, in the adult version, it is awesome, awesome. And then Stronger, I think a lot of you are a fan. Cute, you have your sample cards. Yeah, and then Stronger, Stronger is immune boosting. Like this is the one that we have on our kitchen counter. So girls going to school in the morning put Stronger on their spine. During cold and flu season, when they come home, they also put it on their spine. It's like, you come home, you wash your hands, and you roll on Stronger, and then we double down too and roll it on going to bed at night as well. And again, that's why it's important to have it handy. You do not need to buy 8 of these and have them in every room. One cool tip, you may have seen online on Amazon or on doTERRA, little sample bottles. And before we really got into oils, and I was like, I don't know that I want to spend like, however many dollars to buy 3 different Stronger bottles. I just had the little sample bottles in different rooms. And then I would just split the bottles into little samples. So I wasn't going all in and buying all these oils right away, but I still could have them handy. Because if it wasn't right beside me, quite honestly, I'm not like hucking it up the stairs or downstairs to go get an oil. It's got to be right there for me to actually use it. So Stronger is one that and with On Guard as the adult version, we love. Tamer and Rescuer. Tamer for belly, we talked like digestion issues, motion sickness. We talked about rubbing on your nose and lips. Rescuer is awesome. It's like the kids version of Deep Blue, and I know we have a lot of Deep Blue fans out there, but Rescuer, we've found it most useful. Actually, the time we use it most, and I think some of you might have done this too, is during growing pains. So Ellie went through a few different growth spurts where night after night she'd be like restless leg and in a lot of pain and just miserable. And so rather than having it in our little container here, that was a period where we just have it in her room, and every night she just rolled it on going to bed. Highly, highly recommend it for growing pains if your kids are going through that. Last slide. So I did mention gut health and the importance of, the baseline nutrition. The 3 products that I absolutely love from doTERRA are the Omega oil, the multivitamin chewable, which we sent out in samples. Ashley, somehow yours did not make it into your sample box. So I will give it to you when I see you. I do not know how that happened. And I was like, 3, I know whose that is. Ashley. 3 kids. And then PB Assist. PB Assist is a probiotic. Reese, raise your hand if you like PB Assist. The Pixie Stick. Yeah. All the kids love the Pixie Stick because it's like this powdery thing. You can mix it into yogurt and water, but most kids just like to literally drink it like a Pixie Stick. And it's a probiotic, 6 different strains of bacteria, which is, feeding the good bacteria in your belly. Okay, and I won't go through these other ones. Just know that there are adult versions of the different oils available as kits or on their own. If you do want to go for pre-diluted versions, and then there's also a version for emotional stuff. Console is one of the oils. It is the oil, not one of the oils, that got me through my catastrophic anxiety. It honestly was a game changer. I first started using it in its undiluted form when things were at its worst. And now I just apply it once a day in the morning from a diluted version. And it was incredible, which is weird because Console is an oil that is targeting for grief. And I was like, how is that going to help me? But then I started to understand that one of the things that was happening to me is that I was grieving my prior pre-anxiety life. I couldn't figure out how do I ever get out this? And why are there people around me that don't seem to worry when their kids are on swing sets? And why is this my life? And when can I go back to being free and having a time again where I'm not so worried about everything. And so I think that's why that oil ended up working so well for me. One thing, that's everything, and I'd love to turn to questions if you have, but when I do send the follow-up along with the class slides and a couple of links, for those of you, not a couple, it's a long list of links in case you guys do decide to kind of try some DIY stuff in the future. There's a workbook in there for some of you who have older kids who can sort of start to express things a little bit more, probably tougher for the younger kids. It's a little workbook. It's 3 pages that show you, it's like a wheel on the front that shows you all the oils along with feelings. And you can say, how are you feeling, buddy? You know, if you have some of these oils at home, you know, smell this oil. How do you feel? And then there's some prompts on the next pages around, you know, reaching, that help you understand how to reach for oils to help with different emotions. So probably better for older kids. It's, I think, harder concept to understand for the younger ones. But I think that like Ellie at 6 has a pretty good grasp of like how she's feeling and can start to say, oh yeah, I do like that smell, Mom, or no, I don't like that smell. So I'll send you guys a bunch of that stuff. If I don't, Isa, I don't know if you have all your folks on email addresses, but if you don't, and if you are, you know, new to me and you don't know me, let me type my email address in here. So you can send, do you have everyone, Isa?
Did you want to stop sharing screen maybe, and then we can open up questions?
Perfect, yeah, and then I will also, oops, go through here to the chat. If you do want the follow-up resources, just send me an email. It's Alex at the Parent Essentials.
Krista has a question. She wanted you to share what oil blends you have in your first aid kit she would like to replicate.
Yeah, okay, so the first aid kit, so I'll start with the kids ones and then I will, you know, the adults are kind of similar, but first aid, tamer and rescuer for sure. And then I use the Correct-X, which is awesome. And actually, Krista, you know what? I actually have a post with all of this, so I can send it out in the follow-up, but it's like a whole list of like, what are the things, but those are the, I find those are the ones I reach for the most. It's the Correct-X, which we love, lavender for skin irritations. I mean, oh my goodness, skin irritations and lavender is amazing. Funny enough, I have helichrysum that is in Charlie's nightstand because I mentioned she's my kid who's like, you know, full barrel at everything. So she's got a scar here and a scar here. And so we put helichrysum on all night, but lavender is great. Rescuer, lavender, Correct-X. There's one more, Melaleuca. So Melaleuca for ear infections. Like our kids aren't majorly prone to ear infections, but if your kids start to complain about ear infections, then rubbing Melaleuca down the back of their ears, rosemary, I think is another, basil, I think is another great one for that. But I know a lot of parents who do get, whose kids get them regularly have a lot of success with using oils behind the ear. I also, if your kids are really big swimmers, I have like a blend I make up, and it's an easy one too, but it's basically the same concept of, you know, Melaleuca. If they're going to like my, which we haven't traveled to Toronto in a long time, but if we visit my brother in Toronto and I know they're going to be in a pool all week, I rub it on their ears in the morning and after they get out of the pool for the day, because I just like want to proactively prevent swimmer's ear, because swimmer's ear is not fun either. And so we use it for that. Does anybody else, how else do you guys use your oils for first aid? I'm trying to think if I missed any major, oh, the fever roller. The fever roller is a big one. So we have that. Breathe for, oh, we have a respiratory blend. I call it bronchial wellness. But this actually goes in the diffuser every night, because right now, like we're all, you know, on top of each other. So we always have like for like coughing, congestion. We're, like I said, we're not an ear infection family. We're not a big fever family. We're not a big stomach family. But what we are is the rest, like when we get sick, it's like the cough and cold. And so that's why we always have that on hand. What is that, Nicole? I can't tell. Oh, Reese is drawing. I can't tell. Oh,
it's lavender.
Oh, lavender, cute. Way to go, Reese. But do you guys see, like, this is like, I mean, I swear we did not like set this up, but this is a perfect example, like how kids, like they just like, they're curious, right? They love this stuff. They love nature. They connect like, hey, here's the plant and here it is in the oil bottle. Like, I know we're over time, but like, I had recently read that, you know, many, many years ago, our ancestors were exposed to thousands of plants, just like in their everyday lives, right? They're outside walking around. So they're constantly like walking through the forest, like plants rubbing up against their skin. And now it's like, I think it's like 3 to 5. It's like some ridiculous number under 10 that people are exposed to. And these are literally like little forests in a bottle in our homes, giving us that power of like the plant in like, you know, essentially a bottle. So anybody else, what other tips did you guys, what other things you guys have in your
Peppermint for headaches.
peppermint for headaches? Yep, huge. Anyone who has migraines, frankincense is a big one. Like if you do suffer from frankincense, people have success with putting a drop of frankincense on their thumb, putting it on the, pressing up on the roof of their mouths. So a lot of people have said success with that.
I do that with peppermint and frankincense. So I'll do the frankincense first, and then I'll follow it up with peppermint the same way. And it's almost like every single time it works.
Awesome. Yep.
I was going to mention too, if anybody wanted to know, anytime it says touch on a roller, that's when you know that it has been pre-diluted and it's safe for you to use with your kids. If you have like a really tiny infant, let's say 0 to 6 months, you might want to just dilute it even further. But the touch, and anytime the bottle says touch, that means it's pre-diluted. There are some rollers that doTERRA sells, like the Intune, Clary Calm, and a couple others, past tense, that are not diluted. They're pure oil. Immortelle is another one. So you can definitely, they're safe enough to use topically for adults, but you can easily buy empty rollers from doTERRA and stretch those out and cut them with some coconut oil, and they'll last a lot longer, and they'll be safer for little people as well.
Yeah, I actually, that was a new one. I think Isa, you told me about a couple weeks ago, and I know there's a bunch of Clary Calm fans on this. I assumed that Clary Calm was diluted in fractionated coconut oil, but it is not. That's pure. So that's a good one to literally split into multiple bottles so it lasts you longer.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to mention quickly is I have to find it because I kind of tried to Google right now and I couldn't find it real quick, but I will post it under this video. doTERRA does have a place you can go online, and I believe there's an app as well for your emotional support, whether that's for you or for your kids, to help you figure out which oil for which emotion. Intuition is a really great tool. Very often, like I know Alex does this with her girls, but just letting them figure it out, and our bodies know we're usually drawn to the one that we need. But doTERRA does have an app that's really great. Like if this is how I'm feeling, this is the oil I would use to feel a certain way that I want to feel. And one I know we didn't mention, but that's amazing that my whole entire family has been using, is the Adaptive, especially the roller. That one, if you have any kids or adults, moms, with anxious feelings, Adaptive has been a lifesaver for sure.
Yep, that was on rotate at our house. Okay, any other questions?
I was just wondering if the supplements were available in Canada.
Oh,
They are not. So the kids supplements are only available from the US warehouse. Health Canada's funny with everything, but especially things for internal use. So they will be available for sure, but as of right now, only from the US warehouse. But when you are purchasing the Lifelong Vitality Pack, they are an option at, I think, more than half price.
yeah.
So they're one of the, when you buy the Lifelong Vitality Pack, you get to choose on the US side. Us Canadians don't have as many options, but on the US side, I think it's up to 8 different supplements they allow you to choose from at like a huge discount. And the kids supplements are part of that, bundled, the chewable and the omega.
That's how we actually first explored it. I was like, oh, they have kid supplements here. Add to cart. Yeah.
Yeah, they reward you when you're bundling things, right? So they always give you better deals.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Krista has a question.
Oh, she's saying
I
bye.
have to leave. Bye,
Oh,
guys.
Bye.
Have
Okay.
a great dinner.
Yes, thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you. Any other questions? Thank you all for joining right in the middle of dinner.
Joanne, can I call you? Joanne,
She says, yeah.
yeah, okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.